evening, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us here today. I think it's 4 p.m. and we can get started. People have started joining us for the webinar, and we can get started and wait for more people to join in as we continue. Um, so we are here today basically to discuss more about sustainable mobility issues in Bengaluru, to find the linkages between sustainable mobility, climate change, and air pollution, and what the situation is like in the city of Bangalore. WWF India and CSTEP are very happy to welcome all of you who have spared the time to join us here for this very important discussion, and also a very happy World Environment Day to everyone present here. In the discussions today, basically, we intend to get some valuable insights from our experts about what are their thoughts on sustainable mobility as a measure, basically, to address the issue of climate change, to move towards a low carbon future for the city. And also, we will take this opportunity to hear your thoughts on some of the key results of a perception survey that WWF India had carried out in December 2019. So the survey was basically to understand from the citizens of Bengaluru about their thoughts on the issues related to sustainable mobility. We also try to understand from citizens, some government officials and civil society about what they thought were the linkages between the sustainable mobility initiatives and climate change and air pollution in the city. So we'll discuss some of these results with you. My colleague will be presenting the findings. We will hear from our experts about their thoughts on some of the key issues that came up from the perception survey. And we will also generally have a broader discussion on what could be the way forward for a low carbon future, especially in terms of transport. Because given the situation now, and as we look towards a new normal post-COVID, we will also have to change a lot in terms of the way we travel, in terms of the way we move. And it would be very interesting to hear from all of you about your thoughts on how this is going to have an impact on the discussions around climate change, around air pollution, and the broader issues of public health and well-being. Um, why we chose the city of Bengaluru, I think it's very obvious, but also we've been working in the city for quite some time. CSTEP has been in Bengaluru for a while. WWF India has been engaging with various stakeholders in Bengaluru for since 2016, 2017, and it's one of the fastest growing cities. More and more people are now calling Bangalore home. So there are more private vehicles on the roads. There are issues of traffic congestion. The city is obviously there's higher fossil fuel emissions, there are air pollution issues. So we thought all of this would come together, and now that we also have the voice of the citizens, we also know what citizens feel about this. We thought it would be a good time to really discuss these issues in the current context. Without taking too much of your time, let me quickly welcome all our distinguished panelists. We are extremely happy to have with us here Shri Shivraj Patil. He is the Additional Commissioner, Environment and E-Governance in the Department of Transport, Government of Karnataka. Thank you so much, sir, for joining us, for sparing time from your busy schedule to share your valuable thoughts with us. We have Mr. Amit Bhatt, the Executive Director, Integrated Urban Transport, WRI India. Dr. Amir Bazaz, he's the Senior Lead Practice, Indian Institute of Human Settlements, IIHS. We have Mr. Sohanjit Randhawa, Sustainable Affairs and Group Communications, Volvo Group. We have Ms. Lakshmi Anant, she's a Senior Scientist at CSTEP. And we have Dr. T.S. Panwar, he's the Director Climate Change and Energy, WWF India. With this, moving on, may I invite Sri Shivraj Patil to kindly tell us more and share your valuable insights on sustainable mobility initiatives in Bengaluru, especially in the context of climate change. So over to you.
So kindly unmute yourself.
So you would have to unmute yourself, please.
Can you listen me?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I'm extremely I'm grateful to C-STEP for giving me opportunity to be a part of this webinar on sustainable mobility initiatives in addressing the climate change in Bangalore. Before I talk on the initiatives of sustainable mobility which are going to be put in Bangalore city to make the commuters most comfortable, I want to tell you a few things about Bangalore city. It has got a population of over 1 crore, and the commuters are mainly they are depending on three modes of transport. One is BMTC, and also they go by metro, they go by rail also, and aggregators are there to give the mode of transport to the commuters. Ola and Ubers, they are in operation, and also within the city auto rickshaw system is also it is operating to be a part of the sustainable mobility which is there in Bangalore city. And before I go to the initiatives which which the government is planning to put it in use for developing, for promoting the sustainable, environmentally sustainable transport in Bangalore city. As you all know, the sustainable transportation system allows the basic access needs of the individuals, and also it is affordable, operate fairly and efficiently, offering a choice of transport mode and supports the competitive economy. Just to share with you, in this Allied group, we have a 150,000 auto rickshaws which are operating in the city to give the transportation needs to the people of Bangalore. We have one initiative of switching over all these 150,000 auto rickshaws to convert them into the electric vehicle modes, so that it will be a environmental friendly, and also the earnings for the drivers, it will increase. It will also reduce the noise pollution in the city, and also helps us to improve the air quality index in Bangalore city. That is already the proposal is moved to the government, and also we are supporting them. We are encouraging the EV electric vehicles by giving them incentivization. We are offering them 150,000 if the existing auto is converted into electric auto rickshaw cab, which is almost costing 3.2 lakhs, and wherein the FAME India policy also is offering some sort of financial subsidy to them through the dealers. And in this way, we have already made the plans for which we are preparing by building the charging infrastructure in Bangalore city, in metropolitan city of Bangalore. Already we gave the financial assistance to the BESCOM. BESCOM is already, they have, they have made the arrangements to put the charging infrastructure, that is charging stations, fast charging as well as slow charging auto rickshaws. They operate with the batteries which are about 90 to 110 kilowatt hour capacity. For that also, the arrangements were made to install the battery charging stations in Bangalore in various locations, which can be traced through the apps. App is also developed to trace the nearest charging station in Bangalore city. That is one initiative. The other initiative, already Bangalore is in the National Green Tribunal. It has been pointed out. It has pointed out the Bangalore as a non-attainment cities in India. That means whatever the clean air policies we have, that have not been accepted by the NGT, and they have sent back, and they are asking us to go for the rigorous and very strict implementation of the policies wherein the air quality index is improved in Bangalore. So we are erecting sensors. We are placing sensors at important places where the polluting vehicles are easily traced. And we are also planning to go for the camera based enforcement so that the compliance by the polluting vehicles will be very strictly observed. That is one thing. The other thing is the vehicle improvement in transport practices and technologies, in which we are going for higher vehicle technology, fuel quality. Also, we are now adopting BS6 standards, and also we are using the intelligent transport system, and energy security policies are also placed to operate in Bangalore through the government policies. It is very much needed that one EST forum is a necessary thing which has to be formed in Bangalore, because this environmental sustainable transport forum, which consists various experts from the various departments. Integrated approach is a need of the hour. We have to have that in Bangalore. We are writing to the government, and also the penalties are more. We are increasing the penalty for the erring traffic, and as well as more polluting vehicles. So this is one initiative that we are switching on to the auto rickshaws to the electric vehicle mode. The other thing is another initiative that we have taken is there are so many multinational companies. Bangalore is a silicon city of Silicon Valley of India, and here the multinational companies, they are carrying their employees through the vehicles. We are asking them, we are insisting them to convert at least 20% of their fleet into the electric vehicles. There are so many captive charging stations also in Bangalore, which they can make use of those captive charging stations. Niti Aayog and also the BESCOM, it has made just, setting up of a charging station is a licenseless. They need not take the license. If they have a raw power, then they will be allotted the green meters for them, energy meters, through which they can pay the bill, and charging is also very, very less when compared to the fossil fuel energy rating. Is consuming electric energy is a cheap fuel cost for the vehicles. So this is another second initiative that we have already started from the transport department to write the letters to all that multinational companies comply with this. We have the electric vehicle policy also. The policy is developed in Karnataka some 8-10 years back, and all department, industry department, transport, BESCOM, all we are all having meeting to implement that electric vehicle policy in Karnataka to make Bangalore as a capital of electric vehicles in India. So there are already 28 to 30,000 vehicles which are registered with us. Of course, they are all light commercial vehicles. Now we are asking BMTC to go for bigger fleet of electric vehicles. They are also planning to set up the infrastructure for charging and all. I think they have called for the tender, and some 500 electric buses are coming in Bangalore city to cater the needs of the people. Thereby, it is also going to support the sustainable transport system in Bangalore. And these are the few initiatives. And among the two-wheelers, among the general public, we are creating more and more awareness to go for green energy vehicles. And also we are asking them to come forward to support for this, the initiatives which the government is developing, and also their participation and their response is most important. The public have to realize how to support the erstwhile Garden City of India it has to be, maintained like that only. Of course, as you rightly told me in the introductory remarks, that Bangalore is getting more and more traffic problems. Vehicles are increasing. Now we have around 86 lakhs vehicle which are registered and kept use within the metropolitan city of Bangalore. And out of that, the BMTC alone, which is catering the needs of the 35 lakhs people every day. Every day, before COVID-19, I am telling you, before February and January, they were giving the service to about 35 commuters in Bangalore city, and supported by Metro Railways, which were catering the needs for about 5 lakhs people. And we have the aggregators also, well-developed system of aggregators who are working to the needs of the people who travel in taxis and all. So they are also catering to the tune of around 15 to 20 lakhs. They are used in number, and we are also insisting them to go for the change in the vehicle mode. That is from fossil fuel internal combustion engines to the electric vehicles. So I think these are the initiatives we are thinking of from the department side. Hope the government will also encourage for all these things, and it is going to be a successful one in the interest of the Bangalore city climate. And for sustainable mobility, of course, it is the need of the hour. We are trying all with single-handedly and all jointly. And this forum of EST, Environmental Sustainable Mobility Forum, it is the need of the hour. We are trying to impress upon the government also to form one committee on this. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir, for providing us all the details of the various initiatives being taken by the government of Karnataka and the initiatives being taken in the city. We don't have time for too many questions, but then, so there is one question, if I may, if you allow me, I can just take one question from the audience, if that is okay. So there is one of our audience members is asking that does the government really face challenges in implementing electric vehicle policies? What are the hurdles that they have to cross in order to successfully implement, and bring electric vehicles into the city?
Actually, government has to provide it has to make budgetary provisions, because people, particularly the vehicles will have to be incentivized, electric vehicles. Then only the people will come forward to buy the vehicles, and also the maintenance of those vehicles, and also the running cost is very, very less. I think government has to make some rollout plans.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much for sharing your views on this. We would really like it if you can stay throughout the session, but in case you are busy, we completely understand. And we'll now move on with the program. But before that,
I'll be here to.
That is
I'll
really
be here
great.
to know the things.
Thank you so much, sir. It will be great to have you with us throughout. And moving on now, I would like to invite my colleague, Mr. Saurav Chaudhary, to present the findings of the perception survey on sustainable mobility and climate change from a Bengaluru perspective. But before that, just a few housekeeping things. If you have any questions, please put them on the Q&A section. And also, when we move to the panel discussion section of this evening, please also put the name of the panelist whom you would like this question to be addressed to. Thank you. With that, Saurav, over to you.
Thank you so much. Is my presentation visible?
Yes, it's visible.
Okay, just a second. So good afternoon, everyone. I'm Saurav Chaudhary, a senior program officer with the WWF Climate Change and Energy Division. And I would like to present our study on, on sustainable mobility in the city of Bangalore. I have divided the presentation into 5 parts in order to maintain little clarity in terms of the present scenario and our findings. So Bangalore has emerged as the worst traffic congested city globally as per a 2019 survey. And in addition, the city also has a high vehicle ownership ratio. As per the 2011 census, there was 1 vehicle for every 2 persons on the street of Bangalore, according to the traffic department. And that has increased considerably in the recent years. Bangalore is also the hub of IT industry in the country and hence one of the fastest growing cities in India. This has led to the worsening of traffic situation, which has led to the adverse impacts of higher fossil fuel emissions, air pollution, and subsequently affecting the general well-being and health of the citizens. It is therefore imperative for a city like Bangalore to make a fast transition to sustainable and low carbon mobility scenario. In December 2019, WWF India conducted a survey to understand the perception of citizens, government officials from the transport-related departments, and civil society of different aspects of sustainable mobility through online surveys and face-to-face interviews. The respondents were asked a common set of questions regarding the current scenario of Bangalore, challenges and opportunities for promoting sustainable mobility in the city, and understanding of the linkage between sustainable mobility and climate action. This study aims to summarize all these findings in order to see how the stakeholders in the city feel about Bangalore's mobility scenario. The study shows that in the initial study shows that around 50% of the households own at least one car or two-wheeler, and more than 50% of citizens walk on a daily basis, while 36% use two-wheelers. The study shows that two-wheelers are still the primary choice of travel for most of the occupation groups, as 66% respondents own one or more bike, hence they are more attributed for daily usage. Also, the survey shows that 54% respondents own one or more car, but the usage is still less due to high traffic congestion. About 50% of respondents agreed that they walk on a daily basis, which calls for better pedestrian infrastructure in the city. Further, talking about non-motorized transportation, most of the respondents have stated that they never use bicycle in order to promote sustainable mobility in the city. This is an important linkage which should be further explored. And most importantly, 41% women use public transportation on a daily basis, which calls for better safety and gender-inclusive public transportation. The study of the travel time shows that even for around 30 minutes of travel time, people face around 15 minutes of traffic congestion on the roads. The travel behavior and various other parameters reveal that commuters on car and two-wheelers spend around 24 minutes every day in traffic congestion, yet most of the respondents preferred using private transport for daily commute. In terms of respondents' perception on the present mobility scenario in Bangalore, it was observed that for all stakeholders, which include citizens, government officials from the transport-related departments, and civil society organizations, believe that air pollution, related health problems, traffic congestion, and high level of emissions were perceived as the biggest issues related to transport. Whereas the opinions on the need of improvement of affordability, safety, and accessibility of transport were somewhat neutral. And surprisingly, 34% of survey citizens use public transport in the city. Upon further assessment of this citizens' perception on Bangalore's public transportation, it shows that citizens were more satisfied with the Namma Metro as compared to the existing bus network, which can be attributed to the higher duration of traffic congestion faced by those traveling for longer distances. Citizens were also more concerned about factors like parking facilities at station, seat availability, cleanliness, travel time, punctuality, environment friendliness, and last mile connectivity in the existing modes of public transportation. One of the key goals of this study was to understand the factors which would encourage the usage of public transport. Citizens have indicated that cleanliness, availability of seats, affordability, and reduced travel times are the motivation for making a shift to public transport. However, the civil society responses emphasize that the need for real-time information, last mile connectivity, and punctuality as motivating factor for enhanced uptake of public transport among citizens. Surveyed government officials believe that better policies focused on environment concerned and strengthen operations and management system would actually encourage people towards using public transportation. Going further, after the understanding the perception towards the city's mobility scenario, we tried to gauge the awareness among citizens regarding and government officials about sustainable mobility. The survey shows that most of the citizens and government officials perceive what sustainable mobility is. They recognize CNG-powered vehicles, MRTS, BRTS as common sustainable mobility options. The majority of the government officials were aware of the city-level policies and plans promoting sustainable mobility in the city. The assessment regarding the basic understanding of sustainable mobility shows that while the citizens were aware of sustainable mobility options in Bangalore, when it came to the actual usage, they still preferred using private transportation in the city. As Bangalore is one of the leading cities in terms of urban development across the Indian landscape, it has already taken numerous initiatives related to sustainable mobility. We tried to group the responses into categories of common, similar, and different initiatives as per different survey groups. Both government officials and CSOs agreed that Nama Metro, the Green Link project for the promotion of NMT, dedicated bus priority lane, integrating metro with last mile connectivity, and better parking policies like park and ride were some of the major sustainable mobility initiatives in Bangalore. In addition to that, the CSOs further emphasized the role played by initiatives like improving urban roads and sidewalk, encouraging the mobile startup ecosystem, and enhance shared e-mobility. While the government officials suggested separate initiatives in addition, like preparation of pedestrian and road safety guidelines, creation of state urban transport fund, and proposed action plan for control of air pollution as enablers of sustainable mobility in Bangalore. Lastly, we tried to understand the perception of all the respondents towards the linkage between mobility and air pollution contributing further to climate change. Our study shows that while most respondents mentioned in that the transport sector contributed to air pollution in the city, the perception of the percentage contribution actually varied. However, the awareness among surveyed citizens regarding measures to control air pollution in the city was found to be limited. While the respondents have varied response toward the contribution of mobility to air pollution, 40.1% is the actual contribution of transport sector to PM 2.5 in the city of Bangalore as per a latest study. And going further, on a positive note, the survey has established the fact that majority of the citizens and government officials agreed that climate change is real, and 82% agreed that vehicular emissions were widely responsible for global warming. Among those citizens who agree that climate change is real, 55% actually travel by non-sustainable modes of transport like car, two-wheeler, and auto rickshaw. However, only 16% citizen and 38% government officials and CSOs believe that climate change perspectives have been incorporated into cities' transportation planning initiatives. In order to plan acceptable, sustainable transportation infrastructure in Bangalore, it is crucial for us to understand the perspective on how low carbon options in the city can be actually crafted as per how the citizens view it and their personal choices in terms of transitioning to climate-friendly mobility behavior. Most of the citizens have said that Nama Metro, public transport, electric vehicles are the key examples of incorporation of climate change perspective into Bangalore's transportation-related planning. Although currently most of the surveyed citizens preferred using private transport for daily commute, however, about 41% highlighted an intent to transition to public transport as a sustainable lifestyle choice to reduce their individual carbon footprint. Others preferred low carbon mobility options like NMT, walking and cycling, electric vehicle, and carpooling. In summary, a comprehensive analysis of the survey findings revealed the priority interventions recommended for catalyzing a smooth transition towards sustainable mobility in Bangalore. These interventions are enhancing public transport through a rapid expansion of BRTS and metro network, bus priority lanes and route rationalization, including feeder service network, improving last mile connectivity, championing low carbon mobility through actions such as promoting electric vehicles and improving battery charging infrastructure, addressing air pollution issues by adopting cleaner fuels like CNG, electricity, and biofuels, leveraging partnership, including deeper engagement with private sector to address mobility issues, using the Internet of Things for enhanced real-time information and common ticketing, disincentivizing private transport through policies such as levying congestion charges, demarcating ultra-low emission zones, managing on-street and off-street parking, developing a climate resilience transportation system, and lastly, operationalizing a unified metropolitan transport authority, UMTA. And we have compiled all the findings of this study in a booklet, which shall be sent to all the attendees along with the webinar recording and feedback mail. And thank you for joining us for this discussion, and happy World Environment Day. Thank you.
Thank you, Saurav, for the presentation. We have several questions regarding the survey coming in the chat box and in the Q&A. As Saurav mentioned, we will be sharing the findings with you after the webinar, and you will find all the details in that. Moving on, we will be discussing more about the survey during the panel discussion, so we'll not take more time. Let's move on to the panel discussion, which is about the way forward for low carbon mobility in Bengaluru. And for this, I will hand over the proceedings to Dr. T.S. Panwar. Sir, over to you. So you will have to unmute yourself.
And a very good afternoon to all the participants of this webinar. Thanks to all of you for joining us today on World Environment Day for a discussion on low carbon mobility options in Bengaluru. As was told earlier by Shuchi, we have an eminent panel that includes Mr. Amit Bhatt from WRI India, Dr. Amir Bazaz from Indian Institute of Human Settlements, Mr. Sohanjit Randhawa from Volvo Group India, and Ms. Lakshmi Ananta from CSTEP. I'd like to extend a very warm welcome to all our panelists and all the participants for joining the discussion today. As you are aware, Bengaluru, the Garden City, is in recent years more known for its traffic congestion and the associated environmental problems. As a major IT hub in the country, the urban infrastructure has expanded in the city significantly, and accordingly, the demand for transport services has risen. There have been efforts to supplement the public transport bus infrastructure by BMTC, with metro services being offered by Bengaluru Metro Rail Corporation, and other recent efforts, as told by Mr. Patil, regarding enhancing the electric mobility ecosystem in the city. Also, Bengaluru is well known for its initiatives towards improving the cycling ecosystem as part of non-motorized transport and traffic management efforts, such as many roads being designated as one-ways. However, despite all these efforts, Bengaluru has seen high traffic congestion, high levels of air pollution, and increased carbon emissions. Also, we just heard the key findings of the perception study, which highlighted not only the challenges, but also the opportunities for promoting sustainable mobility in the city. And also what the citizens felt could be the possible measures for faster transition to sustainable mobility, whereby one could address the twin challenges of air pollution as well as climate change. To analyze some of these issues and to discuss the way forward for low carbon mobility solutions in Bengaluru, let me now turn to our eminent panel. And to start with, maybe I'd address the question to Mr. Amit Bhatt from WRI India. So Amit, as you know, one of the key findings presented here was related to air pollution, traffic congestion, and high levels of emissions. These three are seen as the biggest issues faced by all the stakeholders, that is the citizens, the government officials, as well as the civil society organizations which are active on these issues. So the findings indicated that even for around 30 minutes of travel time, people face about 15 minutes of traffic congestion on the road. And on an average, cars and two-wheelers spend 24 minutes in traffic congestion every day. So since you have been working on these issues, how do you see, what are the ways in which this major problem of traffic congestion can be addressed? Over to you. Thank you.
No, absolutely. I think, first of all, a fantastic survey done in Bangalore to get an insight, an in-depth analysis on the mobility patterns of the city. And I think some of the findings that have come are in a way not very surprising, because even though I don't live in city, we have an office in Bangalore. I keep frequenting to Bangalore. So we, in a way, knew qualitatively the problem, but I think now you have put numbers to it. So that's very exciting. I think one is we have to understand that I think what cities need is mobility. And when we talk about mobility, we often come to as a measurement of mobility in terms of congestion. While congestion is important, but I think that our measurement metric should not be vehicular delay, but passenger delay. Now, if you start looking at from that perspective, then the question then becomes, how do I move more people rather than vehicle? And that requires a kind of paradigm change in terms of the approach which one adopts for providing mobility. Now, as you rightly said, that for a 30-minute journey, a 15-minute is a delay. So one is that we have to understand that even with low levels of motorization, our cities cannot accommodate motor vehicles beyond an extent. And I think what we have seen from global evidence is that you just cannot supply enough roads to meet all the transport demand. So the question then becomes, how do you make a balance where you have a certain level of motorization, but that does not come at a cost of mobility? And that's where I think we have to shift our focus. I think one is we have to rapidly ramp up public transport. So Nama Metro is a great example in Bangalore, but I think of late BMTC fleet has been stagnant. So how do you kind of double or 2.5 times increase the BMTC's capacity is one. Second is also, how do you make sure that buses in the city run faster? And I think the recent experiment of bus corridor in Bangalore again is a great example, because if buses will move slow as compared to two-wheelers or four-wheelers, then there will certain set of people who will not shift to buses. So we have to make increase quality of transit, and we have to make transit fast. So that's point number one. Point number two is also, I think we have some great examples of tender sure roads, where roads were created with adequate walking path. But I think we also need to go beyond, which is we have to have more roads with adequate bicycle path, but walking path, but also how do you bring cycle track into it? Because Bangalore is one city where it has a fantastic climate, which is very conducive to walking. And if you look at the triplets which came out from the survey, I think a lot of trips are amenable to cycling. So how do you create safe infrastructure for walking and cycling? That's point number three. And point number two, and point number three, which is my last point, is that even after public transport and walking and cycling, there still will be some trips which will be there on personal modes, or whether it is shared transport or personal transport. Then how do we shift those transport to electric? I think that should be our third strategy as a way forward for the city. Yeah. So I will end at this point here.
Thanks, Amit, for these views. And I think you rightly addressed all three of them: public transportation, NMT, as well as electric vehicles. I think these are important solutions which need to be worked on. And earlier also we saw the additional commissioner emphasizing a lot on electric mobility. I'll come back to you later on with other questions, but for the moment, let me move to Dr. Amir Bajaj. So Dr. Bajaj, as per the survey, 42% citizens thought sustainable mobility and climate change are linked. However, on being asked whether climate change perspectives were being incorporated in the transportation planning initiatives in the country, most citizens said they were not aware. What should climate resilient transportation in Bengaluru ideally look like? Where is the city presently in terms of mainstreaming climate in transport planning and development? And what would be your suggestions for a way forward? Over to you. Thanks.
Thank you, Dr. Panwar, and good evening to all my co-panelists and also other attendees. Thank you for this opportunity, and also congratulations on this study. I think this is timely and also important. So coming to the point, and I think Amit has broadly set it up very nicely. I'll just pick up from him and lay it out in terms of how should we think about climate resilient transportation in Bengaluru. So, as far as mainstreaming is concerned, I think Mr. Patil talked about a lot of initiatives. Amit followed up by highlighting some of the critical challenges. So I'll not focus on that element because I am not the right person to do it, because I haven't followed this very closely. But because I work a lot on climate, I'll just talk a little bit about the Climate Connect and how should we think about sustainable mobility in Bengaluru. I think structurally, it's reasonably clear that if we want to address climate through transportation, we essentially have to talk about 4 or 5 elements and focus on 4 or 5 elements. So we have to focus on what fuel we are using. We have to focus on the modal split. We have to think about occupancies. We have to think about the percentage share of non-motorized transport. And of course, the usual things of which are related to planning, that what's the average trip length, what's the average number of trips in a day. I think structurally we know, and there's a lot of literature around this, a lot of evidence around this. And I think Mr. Patil talked about what Mr. Patil talked about in terms of initiatives is reasonably speaking to these things. But I think what should be the driving factor when we are thinking about climate resilient development? And that is where I am now coming to. That's one point. And second, what are the critical kind of elements that we should try and focus on going forward? That would be like my second part. So I think so if we pick up the concept of low carbon in general, so there's this misconception that look, it's about decarbonizing, it's about using renewables and all, and non-fossil based fuel. But it's not only that. When it was being defined, it was conceptualized to be something related to enhancing the quality of life of people. And I think apart from addressing issues of moving from fossil to non-fossil fuel use, it essentially talked a lot about accessibility. It essentially talked a lot about safety, reliability, affordability. And I think if we can try and weave a narrative around, start thinking about public transportation system in a city in general, Bengaluru also included, around these elements, we will be able to deliver a very efficient climate resilient transportation system. So that's like my second point. The third point is that, okay, what's the blueprint like? So I think Amit laid it out very clearly. We need to think about moving people rather than moving vehicles. So, and the best way to do it is that bring more and more people to public transport system. And therefore we need to look at how are routes planned, are people, each and every section of the society able to use public transport, is the fleet good enough, And how should we think about the intermediate public transport? Okay, so it's like roughly around 12 to 14 rupees a kilometer. So somebody traveling like 5 or 6 kilometers, is it feasible from an affordability point of view for someone who is engaged in a non-formal economic activity? So we have to do some thinking about intermediate public transport, which is also very important. But I think I am a little surprised at, considering the fact that Bangalore has very good weather. I don't find a lot of, at least I don't see a lot of bicycle usage or over, say, a stretch of 5 to 6 kilometers. And of course, I take a certain path to my office, which is in North Bangalore. And of course, there's serious issues about safety. So there are no dedicated tracks, and so the people are dissuaded. So I think NMT, thinking a little bit about NMT would be nice. And finally, two more points. One is about Bangalore is a primate city. It's a very important city in the state, and it is supporting a lot of economic activity, not only that is being generated from the city, but also from the peripheral areas. So there's a lot of movement, say, between Kolar and Bangalore, of people and goods. How can we decarbonize this entire movement of people and goods? So freight traffic, I think we have to think very clearly and logically about freight movement, and of course people movement. There's a lot of talk about suburban railways. It's functioning to some extent. I think a more focus around that would be nice. And finally, if we are thinking about the solution space, we are thinking about interventions, we should spend a little bit of time in terms of, so of course, so if there's some investment, if there's some money required, we have constraints, budgetary constraints, etc. So how could we create an ecosystem around some innovation or intervention that could possibly stimulate some kind of a movement in the direction of starting a local economy. So some jobs, helping people get jobs, also through solutions that are transport focused. I think a little bit of thinking around this would be really very helpful, particularly from the context of ensuring scalability and also making initiatives and interventions viable. So I'll stop here. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bajaj, for this comprehensive response, and also for bringing in elements related to freight movement, which is an important aspect, and the suburban connectivity, and also your emphasis on jobs in the transport sector. So all these are elements which need to be factored in. Let me now move to Lakshmi from CSTEL. So as we have seen, most of the survey respondents believe that transport sector is an important contributor to air pollution and associated health impacts. But further awareness regarding measures to counter air pollution in the city are limited. Also, during the lockdown period, people have experienced good air quality and would like that to be sustained. So just 2 days ago, there was an article in Indian Express which mentioned that PM 2.5 levels in Bengaluru were 25 micrograms per meter cube and NOx levels were 12 micrograms per meter cube in April this year. And these were 51% and 64% lower than the same values last year. So there was certainly a lot of improvement in air quality, and people would like to these efforts to be sustained. So the question is to you is, how do you see the current air pollution scenario in the city, and what are the current transport related initiatives? Some of them Mr. Patil mentioned, but what in your opinion could be the additional measures which could be put in place to sustain a better air quality? Over. Thank you.
Sure, sir. Thank you. Thank you. And coming to your first point, sir, yes, yes, transport sector is one of the major contributor to air pollution in Bangalore. And this is evident from many studies which have been done right in 2007, as well as followed by other studies in 2019. We can see that transport sector contributes to around like 50% of the PM 2.5 emissions, as well as 70% of the PM 10 emissions. And all this is because of the vehicular exhaust and on-road dust resuspension. And these studies have also come up with different strategies, out of which moving towards electric is also one of the strategy, which Patil sir has already mentioned about that. When these strategies are tested, like how much the air pollution or the emissions can be reduced by implementation of each strategy, all the studies are backed up by scientific studies, but still implementation lags. When we have the implementation of these measures on ground, and that implementation of measures is very critical. And given the adverse impacts of air pollution, there is also need for credible and periodic studies. These studies, even though they are sector specific, but since transport is the major contributor to this air pollution and the control measures are anyway in place, implementation becomes the key for this. I would like to add, like CSTEP is currently conducting a recent study on a comprehensive air pollution study for Bangalore. We are hoping that this study will be like a good source of information for various stakeholders to adopt a clean air action plan for Bangalore. And coming to your second point, during the lockdown, yes, people have definitely experienced a good air quality, and it is evident not only in Bangalore, but in at least 70 to 80% of the non-attainment cities in India have a very good air quality index. Whether it is good or satisfactory, they are able to attain that air quality index. Given the significant drop in the transport activities, say people commuting work has come down, has reduced, and it is even the goods transport has also put on hold. So, and there is also a significant reduction in the fossil fuel consumption. All this definitely contributed to a better, cleaner air. But however, this is only for a shorter period, but in the long term, whether this strategies like only restricting people to home will not be a long-term solution. So we should encourage and see this as an opportunity to see that, yes, if you are going towards sustainable modes of transport, there is better air quality the people can experience. And it is evident to them, and people should definitely be willing to shift to sustainable transport modes for a better, for improving their health as well as environment. And
yeah, thank you. Thanks for your response, and especially for emphasizing on the implementation part, which truly is very important, because there are a number of action plans which have been prepared over the years, but it is the implementation which matters the most. So thanks for your response. Moving on to Mr. Sohanjit Randhawa. Randhawa, given that Karnataka was the first state to come up with an e-vehicle policy in 2017, what do you think has been the progress related to charging infrastructure and rollout of electric vehicles in Bangalore? And what is the role of the corporate sector in advancing these efforts? And I request you, while responding to this question, also touch upon what Mr. Patil mentioned about the government thinking that the multinationals and other corporates should move to 20% of the fleet towards electric vehicles. Over to you. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Panwa. And good evening to all the panelists and Shri Patel. I think I'll start answering from a little different angle to your question. Everybody, you have already shared in your report about the fact that a lot of people are aware that sustainability is a need, if I'm not wrong. And I think we have reached a point where most of the people who run the policies of the country at state and national level, and a lot of people who are involved in this ecosystem of automobile industry are quite up to date on what needs to be done, right from the uh, alternate fuels to the transport concepts, etc. I would like to first pick up from the point with the earlier panelist mentioned about implementation. When it comes to electric vehicles, and I'm going to only focus on the public transport and specifically buses, I think the first thing we need to understand, electric vehicles and electromobility is just one leg of the entire sustainability story. The problem is that in the last 3 or 4 or 5 years, when we have started talking about electric vehicles, the idea of the public transport agenda, the agenda to make public transport the #1 choice for the citizens of the city or shared mobility against having private vehicles has been gone into the back burner. So if you look at the reality, uh, inducting electric vehicles seems to be the answer to the on the ground decisions, and we feel that that will solve the problem. We don't think that is the answer. Electric vehicle introduction should be subservient to the larger agenda of public transport uh, demand, which is about making people shift to public transport. This means public transport has to be more attractive than having private vehicles. And that includes when we talk about electric vehicles. Just including electric vehicles would not solve the problem. What we'll end up doing is having congestion today because of diesel vehicles and petrol vehicles. Tomorrow we will have congestion because of electric vehicles. And that means we will still be suffering from a lot of issues of congestion, of resource efficiency. And because this whole scenario will not be viable, we will be hitting obstacles of economic viability and citizen preference. Now, getting deeper into the issue of electric vehicles, when it comes to electric vehicles and sustainability, and I specifically take on buses, the problem is while we talk about all this investment and movement forward, it is easier to get funding and development for flyovers and roads and other infrastructure, even maybe a metro. But buses still lie in a scenario where they probably, BMTC probably has to go to commercial banks. So we don't have a status for buses where you can actually implement a viable solution where you have support from the overall system to go in this direction, because they are meant to be profitable. And then you have a lot of obstacles when you try to induct new technology. On the other hand, when you do that in a very, very step-by-step manner, which is very incremental, you do not create the necessary demand, which allows corporates like us to find a business case and start building the right kind of investments to put in the kind of products and solutions. So what I feel is we need to keep our focus on the public transport and the sustainability agenda. And that means people have to move away from private vehicles, go to non-motorized transport, go to other sustainable transports like cycle, for instance, and buses and metro. We have to start looking at ways and means to make this more predictable, quick and efficient. Bangalore has a huge base of IT personnel. We have people in emerging technologies, artificial intelligence, machine learning. Everything is there to make this public transport more attractive. And now when we have a scenario where we have had a lockdown, as was mentioned, and we have faced an environment which was far better than we ever had before, is actually, unlike what it seems, an opportunity to do that. The public transport will open up with social distancing, which means we need far more public transport. Already we are, and this is the time to do that, build up the capacity for the buses and overall public transport, and start normalizing behavior when it comes to non-motorized transport. People should, you see in the last 3 months, people have walked to shops. Very few have started using the bikes and motorcycles. We should normalize that behavior. When it comes to motorized public transport, social distancing will be important. We need to build capacity. That will come into support to take the number of buses higher into the coming years and start making it more attractive. That means we need to upgrade the buses to be more comfortable, and we need to prioritize them so that they are faster and have a faster in the terms of average speeds, and they are more predictable through technology so that we know when they are arriving. So we should use this opportunity going forward. So I hope I kind of explained my answer. Thank you.
Thanks very much. And
Yeah.
thanks for emphasizing that even when we move to the EV ecosystem, priority should be kept on public transportation. And also for touching upon the current scenario whereby social distancing needs to be maintained in the public transport modes. But on this topic particularly, let me just turn to the other panelists very quickly if they want to comment on what adjustments, modifications need to be made in the existing modes of public transport to contain the spread of infectious diseases, and if there are any policy level changes which need to be made in the transportation planning. So a very short and brief response from any of the other panelists who want to comment on this before I turn over to Suchi for the Q&A session.
So I think very quickly, and I think as Suanjit rightly mentioned, I think so if you look at the way we are transporting people in public transport system, so Bangalore in peak hour is about 4 to 5 passenger per square meter in a bus. Mumbai suburban is about 14 to 15 passenger per square meter. Delhi metro is 6 to 7 passenger per square meter. So I think a time has come here to realize that people deserve slightly better quality of service. Public transport does not mean kind of pushing everyone in as little space as possible. So using COVID opportunity to reimagine public transport, and that's a fantastic idea. So one is to kind of look at the occupancy levels. Second is to develop some kind of, and I've been saying this a lot, that if we can develop some protocols on how do you kind of plan services which are safe from the COVID standards. So something like a COVID labeling program, a COVID safety labeling program would be interesting. So it kind of talks about a charter of what's the roles and responsibility of public transit service providers. So whether it is disinfecting the vehicle after every journey or earmarking space for sitting, I think those kinds of things we have to think a little more and develop a plan of action on how do you make sure public transport is safe for from COVID. This thing is something that has to be looked at in detail. So there is a circular which has come from the Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs recently, but does not have too much detail on buses. It talks about metro, but I think for buses we have to develop something slightly more elaborate.
Can I just add a point here, Mr. Palmer?
Sure.
Yeah, I think we also, while there has to be an SOP specifically for buses, we must remember that they are public spaces like all public spaces. So when you're talking about mall as a public space with an AC, so is a bus. The main thing is that we need to build an SOP, which actually many of them are already started following a protocol. When buses in Bangalore buses are already started, for instance, to a certain occupancy level, though it's a low occupancy. So we should not look at buses, while we have to find solutions specifically for buses, but buses are also public spaces like everything else. We cannot just take buses like we do every time, put it down at the lowest level and make it a separate animal. It is a public space. What we do in public spaces applies here too.
Thank you. Thanks. So we see that we are close to the time for the panel discussion to end, and there are a lot of questions which are there. So could I request Suchi to look at the questions and sort of take the gist, or in terms of, the major, club them to see what are the major points which are emerging, which the participants would like to ask. So over to you, Suchi.
So we have several questions coming in right from the beginning of the session today. A lot of these questions might already have been answered during the panel discussion. So a lot of these are already covered. One thing I would like to point out, which I noticed from the questions here, is that there is great resonance on improving NMT. So a lot of people are actually, they've been beginning from asking from the beginning that what are the ways of sort of improving the NMT infrastructure in the city? What are the initiatives that have been taken? Some of these questions have already been answered, but I think that is something that citizens of Bangalore are also looking at, to have better walking and cycling facilities. Going forward, I have a question here which is not specifically marked to any panelist, but I would request any one of you who would like to take this up. And this is on, this asks whether there is any proposal to prepare a holistic master plan that integrates aspects of multimodal transport, including cycling and walking and public transport and all this.
So I think one is that you have to look at, so there is a mobility plan, and then there is a master plan, and then there was also a smart city plan which was prepared. I think, so we have a lot of plans which talk about, but I think apart from master plan, none of these plans have any legal backing. So I think that is where we'll have to move forward, is how do you get these plans, the mobility plans are either part of the master plan so that they have certain teeth for implementation, or else we have to have certain legislation so that even the mobility plans get some backing, because otherwise these are basically recommendatory documents which don't translate into real action on ground. Even the master plan itself has some issues, but these are not legal documents which can be implemented on ground.
Since Mr. Bhatt is already answering a question here, I have one specifically for you. So Mr. Hitendra is asking that he really likes your point about the importance of making buses run faster. But he says that how do you think it can be achieved in Bengaluru, or what are the sort of challenges in achieving this right now?
So I firmly believe, even though I'm a technical person, that transport is basically a political decision. It's not a technical decision. So talk to technical expert, everyone, I don't know, barring anyone, will say that we don't have to prioritize walking, cycling, and public transport. Everyone says that. The question is, does it translate on ground? I think that's where. So I think we have to take a bold political decision, administrative decision, saying that yes, COVID has given us an opportunity that we will prioritize walking, cycling, and public transport. And if we take that decision forward, I think surely there is a space to have space for safe walking, safe cycling, and safe public transport. Because ultimately it's all about the politics which makes things implemented or not implemented on ground.
Thank you.
I can add to that, Sushmita, if you have a minute.
Yes, please.
I just want to put a perspective. What Amit said is exactly right. I think in this situation, leadership is very important. We need to understand that we can dig half of Bangalore up for metro and we will let it happen. But if we had done the same thing to make bus roads, people would have protested. It's a very big perception issue. And this perception has to be started from top. People have to explain the priority, what is required, and people follow the narrative. Half of the time when we ask people what they think about public transport, buses, they will say keep it low cost, because they have been grown to believe that public transport has to be cheap, dusty, and rattling because they don't see it any other way.
Thank you. And another question that we have is that why is Bangalore not exploring CNG more actively? And it's not addressed to any one of the panelists, so I leave it open to any one of you to take this up.
I think this is an answer from the people who make policy decisions, so I really can't answer on their behalf.
Is Mr. Patil there on the call? Is Mr. Patil still on the call?
He is there.
Let's check with him if he has any thoughts on this.
Mr. Patil, are you on the call if you would like to take this question? I think maybe he's not here right now. Anyways, I think we'll move on to the next question that we have here. And basically, people are saying that. So how do you see and this is a question from Ms. Vidya Raghavan. She says, how do you see the integration of the existing private sector feeder systems like Bounce, etc., in conjunction with public transport to increase last mile connectivity? And again, it's not, she's not specified whom she would like this answer to be answered.
No, I think this is an important question because we are seeing a lot of mobility enterprises coming and providing services. And how sustainable they are or not is still a question mark. But I think what we have to do is how do you leverage these innovations? And so like Ubers and Ola came, and now Bounce is coming, and we are also seeing some scooters of a different kind coming in US cities. So I think there's a lot of innovation is happening in the mobility space, but I think this is where the legislation has to keep pace, is that how do you foster this innovation in a right manner? So feeder is a right manner. So, but we don't want, so if you don't have anything, and you will leave it on their own, and probably they will start competing with public transport tomorrow. So one is to create a framework where you can allow innovation happen in a structured manner. I think that's where I think it's important to, one, acknowledge these innovations and then create a framework on which these can be regulated or governed in the city.
Can I add, Sushmita, a line here to what Amit mentioned? I'll just build on this innovation part. I think we should also look at these kinds of initiatives, and Bangalore has always been a test center for all these kinds of new initiatives, to think about the human capital it develops, the capacity to think, the capacity to innovate. And it doesn't only limit itself to solving transport related problems, but it has a spillover effect, and it kind of permeates through the economic system and does wonderful things. And I think this is one area which should be encouraged, and I see a lot of potential in this, in terms of not only transport related solutions, but also in general building human capacities.
So we have another question here, which I'm not sure, maybe it's again a policy related question, but I'll still put it here for the panel. Transport service level benchmarks for Bengaluru indicates a higher score for public transport, but poor in terms of road safety. Where does the city stand in creating a sustainable funding mechanism year on year towards tackling the relatively poor implementation? Any thoughts on that?
Are you talking about road safety?
Yes.
I just have one thought on this, that which I think applies to this too, is that sustainability should be calculated, the cost of sustainable solutions and the efforts we put should be calculated from a citywide perspective. We shouldn't leave it to bus transport operations alone. We shouldn't leave it to what Metro does alone, and we shouldn't leave it to what the traffic police. There's a cost to not being sustainable, and we should know what it costs to the city. And then we can invest into areas like road safety. We can have a fund, because people know that if we improve it, we will gain, and then it will motivate us to find solutions. And I think having a data-backed approach would be very good, but that's another subject.
And on that, Mr. Randhawa, we have a question for you. It says, is Volvo planning to design a social distance compliant bus? I don't know what. So, I know that's a question from the audience.
I can't detail this much. Actually, I'm from the Volvo Group, and our colleagues in Volvo buses are working, not something which will be totally different. The current buses also will work with this current SOP, but we're trying to promote and share something on that line. But I don't have all the details on that front.
I think just one point on over here is that while you can have a vehicle which will have, let's say, social distancing inbuilt, but if your services are not frequent, then all the social distancing will go for a toss at the bus stop itself. So I think we have to move beyond vehicle, but also provide high quality service, frequent service, so that social distancing is observed in true spirit.
Yeah, I totally agree with Amit. I mean, this is the important thing to look at, actually. We have to use this opportunity to make buses, totally reset them to a new experience.
I'll just make a quick point to an earlier comment by Mr. Randhawa. I think we should be also, when we are thinking about beefing up public transport infrastructure, etc., and building capacities, we have to be also mindful of what COVID-19 has done in terms of priorities getting changed. So I think there will be some pressure on public resources because they'll have to move in some other direction, some ways. And already we see a lot of budgetary constraints in various sectors, and that's a traditional thing. So we have to kind of be very innovative in this space that how should we think about moving private capital into this space? Like how should we think about a leasing system? Pune has a leasing system of some kind. So we have to be use this as an opportunity to think about very innovative kind of public transport solutions. That's an important point. But also the point which Mr. Randhawa made that I think at some point in time we have to think about how are we going to pay for services. Like, okay, if is it going to be based on the economic cost of the production of that service? So that's the market principle. And of course, we understand that there are large sections of people who need this to be at lesser cost. I think we have a lot of examples from other areas where we have successfully implemented targeted schemes to benefit such people. I think people who are able to pay should pay the full cost of these services. I think we have to think about making transport financially sustainable in cities, particularly public transport. And I think money will be a big issue in the coming year and a half. We have to think about innovative ways in which we raise financial resources to support augmentation of at least public transport system.
We've really come to the end of the time that we had allocated for the session, but I'd like to ask Dr. Panwar to summarize the panel discussion.
So I think we have had a very good and rich discussion on multiple themes. It's difficult to sort of bring all of them together in a short time, but essentially what we have seen is that there are a number of initiatives, but much more needs to be done. Public transportation comes out as a clear priority and focus during the panel discussion. Non-motorized transport, and especially after this COVID issue, should get much more priority is what is coming out clearly. Implementation has been emphasized, and systems and an integrated approach to tackle the transport problems of the city is what is coming out. Also, there are issues related to affordability of public transport. What are the economic instruments? And lastly, the point related to how do we mobilize additional resources and what could be the innovative measures so that whatever the city requires, that gains prominence. So we did look at multiple aspects, and I would like to sort of take this opportunity now. We'll shortly share the report findings which Saurav earlier mentioned, and I'd like to take this opportunity to thank all the panelists today for a very rich discussion, and also would like to point out that WWF India has been engaged with FICCI in a project for developing a roadmap for low carbon and sustainable mobility in India. And this roadmap we plan to release sometime in June itself. So we would also send the invite to all the participants of this webinar when we hold this online release of the roadmap. So with this, I would like to thank Mr. Amit Bhatt, Mr. Sonjit Randhawa, Dr. Bajaj, and Ms. Lakshmi for joining us today and for sharing their rich experience in this field. Thank you very much, all of you. Thank you. Back
Thank
to
you.
you, Suchi.
Thank you.
Thank you to our panelists. Thank you to the excellent audience. Thank you for all the questions. We could not take all the questions, unfortunately, but we tried to cover as much as possible. And we do hope that you would join us for the next webinar that Dr. Panwar mentioned. And to everyone, be safe. And thank you so much. It's bye from us.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Stay
Thank
safe.